The Galactic Military Academy's orientation amphitheater hummed with the nervous chatter of 200 cadets from across 17 species. Isabella Chen sat near the back, her dark eyes scanning the assembled crowd with quiet curiosity. Most of the aliens were bipedal, though their forms varied wildly. The towering Vrexian with their chitinous exoskeletons, the wispy Ethel whose bodies seemed to shimmer between dimensions, the stocky Krolmak who barely reached Isabella's waist, but were renowned across 3 sectors as fierce warriors. Beside her, Marcus Rodriguez stretched his arms above his head, cracking his knuckles with a grin that made several nearby cadets flinch. "Think they'll actually challenge us?" he whispered. "Marcus, be nice," Isabella murmured, though she couldn't quite suppress her own smile. "Remember what the liaison said. Humans are different. Different is one word for it." The orientation proceeded smoothly enough. The Academy Commandant, a distinguished Vrexian named Kethrix, explained the rigorous training program designed to forge the galaxy's finest multi-species military force. Standard tactics, xenobiology, advanced weapons systems. It all sounded fascinating to Isabella, who had dreamed of the stars since childhood. Then came the physical requirements. "All cadets will undergo standardized gravitational conditioning," Kethrix announced, his compound eyes gleaming in the amphitheater's light. "You will train at 1.2 G, slightly above galactic standard, to ensure peak performance across varied planetary environments." Isabella and Marcus exchanged glances. Earth's gravity was approximately 1 G, yes, but humans had been training at higher gravities for decades. The military back home considered 1.5 G the minimum for serious conditioning. A thin Ethel cadet raised a translucent appendage. "Commandant, what is the maximum gravitational load any species has endured during training?" Kethrix's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "The record stands at 1.8 G, achieved by a Krolmak squad for precisely 47 seconds before physiological distress necessitated termination of the exercise. It remains one of the Academy's most impressive feats." Marcus leaned toward Isabella. 47 seconds? Shh. The first gravity training session took place 3 days later in the Academy's state-of-the-art conditioning center. The massive chamber could adjust gravitational fields in discrete zones, allowing simultaneous training at multiple intensities. Isabella stood in the staging area alongside her assigned unit. 5 species, 12 individuals total. Marcus was 2 units over, already chatting amicably with a nervous-looking Vrexian. "We will begin at standard gravity and increase incrementally," announced their training instructor, a scarred Krolmak veteran named Gormoth. "When you can no longer continue, exit the field immediately. There is no shame in knowing your limits." The field activated at 1 G. Easy. Isabella began the prescribed exercises, basic calisthenics designed to assess baseline fitness. Around her, the other cadets moved with varying degrees of grace. The Ethel seemed to float through the movements, while the Krolmak attacked each repetition with aggressive efficiency. 1.2 G, still comfortable. Isabella noticed the Ethel beginning to struggle, their shimmer flickering uncertainly. One exited the field, breathing heavily through their speech membrane. 1.4 G. Now it was getting interesting. Isabella felt the familiar weight settling into her bones, the slight strain in her muscles. This was roughly equivalent to what she'd experienced during her pre-academy conditioning on Earth's orbital facilities. The Vrexian beside her was slowing down, each movement becoming deliberate, calculated. 1.6 G, half the unit had withdrawn. The Krolmak were still going strong, their low center of gravity an advantage. Isabella adjusted her breathing, centered her core, and continued. 1.8 G, record territory. The remaining Krolmak gave a warrior's salute and staggered out of the field, clearly proud to have matched the Academy record. Isabella was alone now in her zone. She dropped and began doing push-ups. The gymnasium went quiet. Gormath's eyes widened, an impressive feat, given his species' typically stoic demeanor. Across the chamber, Marcus noticed the commotion. He glanced at his own field indicator, 1.7 G. With a theatrical shrug, he cranked his zone to match Isabella's, then exceeded it. At 2G, Marcus joined Isabella in her push-ups, flashing her a competitive grin. The other training zones had stopped entirely, all eyes on the two humans exercising as if the crushing gravity were merely an inconvenience. "Isabella," Marcus called out between reps, "you remember that station workout? What did Commander Pierce have us at?" 2.5 G, Isabella replied, not even breathing hard. "For an hour." Right. Marcus stood, bouncing slightly on his toes, testing the resistance. Then he addressed Gormath directly. "Instructor, how high can these fields go?" Gormath's translator struggled for a moment, as if the device itself couldn't believe the question. The maximum safety rating is 3G. No cadet has ever... Can we try?" At 3G, Isabella felt the weight like a heavy blanket across her entire body. Every movement required deliberate effort. Every breath was earned. It was challenging, genuinely challenging, in a way that made her feel alive. She continued her exercises with perfect form, each rep controlled and precise. Marcus opted for a different approach, deciding to see if he could run laps around the training zone's perimeter. He could, though his stride looked more like a determined lumber than his usual graceful jog. The assembled cadets watched in stunned silence. Several instructors had gathered now, including Commandant Kethrix himself, data pads out and recording everything. "Explain this," Kethrix demanded of the human liaison officer who had hurried into the chamber. "How is this possible?" Lieutenant Commander Sarah Okonkwo, herself looking utterly unsurprised by her species' display, smiled diplomatically. "Commandant, humans evolved on a high-gravity world. What you call 1G is our baseline. Our skeleton density, muscle composition, cardiovascular efficiency, everything about us is built for this environment. But the endurance... We're also persistence hunters, sir. We evolved to chase prey across vast distances until it collapsed from exhaustion. Stubbornness is literally bred into our DNA." In the 3G field, Isabella completed her 100th push-up and stood rolling her shoulders. She looked up at the observation deck where the instructors had gathered. "Permission to request 3.5G, Commandant?" Her voice was steady, almost casual. Kethrix's mandibles worked soundlessly for several seconds. Finally, he managed, "The equipment isn't rated for sustained training above 3G. For safety reasons?" "Understood, sir." Isabella was clearly disappointed, but accepting. Beside her, Marcus gave an exaggerated sigh of relief that made several Ethel cadets twitter nervously. As the two humans powered down their fields and emerged, slightly flushed but otherwise unharmed, the gymnasium erupted in a cacophony of alien chatter. Isabella found herself surrounded by cadets demanding to know her secrets, her training regimen, whether all humans were like this. She caught Marcus's eye across the crowd and grinned. He mouthed a single word: different. Later, as the academy staff frantically began redesigning the human-specific training protocols, Isabella stood in the observation deck looking down at the gravity chambers. Humans had reached for the stars despite the weight of their world trying to hold them down. Now, among species who found even 1.2G challenging, that weight had become humanity's greatest advantage. She smiled. The galaxy had no idea what it had invited to join its ranks. Humans didn't just adapt to adversity. They did push-ups with it and asked for more.